to episode 203 of the Artcasters, and this is the show where we talk about like the ins and outs of cartooning, illustration, graphic design, and pretty much anything creative in that kind of arena. And it alternates between myself and Scott's channel, and usually at the beginning we'll kind of introduce people, but we're also mixing it up today. And so this is also episode 180, round 180 of the 48-hour art check. So, and it's on the eve of Halloween. So Halloween is tomorrow. So I guess the eve before. And so hopefully nothing spooky happens. I hope we're all safe. I hope there are no ghosts or goblins that like suddenly appear. But we'll just kind of, as usual, maybe we can start, since we're meshing it all together, just by making the rounds and letting everybody know where to find us. You're on my channel, so you know where to find me. And basically, if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe and the bell. Other than that, you can go to Quarterly Stories to kind of read my comic that I'm actually working on the last panel, the rough pencils for the last panel on, while we're doing this. And then, Scott, why don't you let everybody know where to find your stuff?
Yeah, you can find me at Circworks on YouTube. That's SERKWORKS. You can also find me at circworks.com. And sometimes you can find me on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. Kind of just wrapping up Inktober on Instagram, so you can check that out.
Love it. And the Inktober stuff's really cool, so you guys should check that out. And then Corey, where can everybody find you? And nice shirt.
You can find me at CoreyKerr.com. So yeah, it's just CORYKERR.com, and that'll have all the things that you need to see. And so you can go to like Twitter and Instagram and YouTube from there.
I really like that animation.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, this is the credits scene. I don't know if I've shown everybody this, but this is like right at the end of that animated short that I did.
Oh my gosh, that's
I
great.
don't think I've seen that.
Oh, you might not have seen the finished version then.
Maybe not. I thought I did. But...
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna have to share that with us, Corey.
Okay. I've got my third festival rejection letter now, so I'm on a roll.
Oh wow.
So got a lot more to do before you can wallpaper your house with them, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a lot further to go. I particularly like that because that animation, my favorite thing in it is the little curly hand of that character. So it's kind of fun to see.
I drew all of these legs specifically just for the credits. So anyway, but now I've got all these articulated insect legs that I can move around and whatever. But
I love it.
Yeah, I know when I do my intro, when I say I do the robots, aliens, zombies, you need to do something. I do insects, and what else do you do, Corey? And just a lot of insects.
Oh man,
anamorphic insects, and
I need to break out of that. I gotta.
No, it's cool. It's kind of your thing. I like it.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious what attracts. Is there anything in particular that attracts you so much to insects? Or I don't think I've ever asked you that.
They're really easy to animate because, like, when I let me do this. So when I there we go. I just took myself off the stream. I was trying to do this. When I bend my arm, right? There's all this like skin that like folds and stretches and everything else. But like when an insect does that, there's just a jointed exoskeleton. And so like it's so much easier to do stuff with them because they're literally like designed in sections.
Yeah.
So I kind of just I've only done a few animations, and a lot of them have been robots and insects because then I don't have to worry about skin folding. I can just move things around with joints. So
really, yeah, that makes sense. I was just curious if there was something else to that or whatever, but that's just as good as reason as any.
That I'm lazy. That's a pretty good reason.
It's not lazy. It's there's a word I'm searching for. Somebody help me out. What's
I'll own lazy. Lazy's good. Yeah, lazy.
Efficient or not efficient? I don't know.
Lazy is the fuel for a lot of my innovation. It's like
resourceful, maybe, or like I don't know. There's a perfect word for it, but it's not coming to me. Anyway.
Yeah, I think efficient, resourceful, smart, lazy, they all work. But I actually think like the thing that kind of works with the type of stories you tend to like to tell for like shorter stories, at least so far, is like you tend to tell a lot of stories that have a lot of kind of analogy in it. And so I think like for analogies in general, or like fables, it's like bugs are perfect.
Yeah,
that kind of thing too. So it kind of, I mean, I'm sure there's a little more depth than just being easy to animate.
I'm also, I mean, the next one I'm doing is a lab rat. So anyway.
And actually that's one of the like leveling up things that I noticed too, was like the way you did that arm, and it kind of like, it has a lot of squash and stretch, and you can't really tell the articulation on it, which is kind of cool, like on the arm. So the way you kind of have started to get really smooth at like seamlessly blending that stuff is pretty cool. Let's get into it. Let's get into the art check, and then we can get into Artcasters and stuff. So for those of you who maybe follow just the Artcasters, by now you probably know what the art check is, but basically we just hold each other accountable every 3 times a week. We check in and we kind of explain what we've done since the last art check, what kind of the difficulties we faced were in that process of doing, and then what our plans are for the next art check. Like, what are we going to get done by then? Sometimes we'll talk about plans that go way beyond the next check-in, but usually it's based on like making sure we're making progress. And I like to think of it as being accountability buddies, or I also have sometimes described it as it's like AA for artists, which I think is kind of cool. Anyhow, accountability buddy is such a brilliant word. I think something weird has happened with the translation system we have here, but
I think the captions are accurate.
So this is something that I thought that was something that Corey kind of coined, but is that from something else? Like I thought somebody told me that was from like what was it that they, I don't know, some cartoon or something, but I can't remember.
It could be, but really early on, we interviewed a writer friend of mine in LA when the two of us were at a conference, and Josh met up with us in the lobby, and we were explaining what the art check was to him, and he said, "Oh, accountability buddies." So I'll have to ask him if he made that up or took it from somewhere.
Yeah, because I thought because I said it, and I thought somebody said, "Oh yeah, that's from such and such," but I don't remember what they said. So
it might be from something, but yeah. I like it. All right, so cool. So what did you get done? We'll start with Corey. What did you get done since the last art check?
A bunch of stuff I can't show. So I am about a quarter of the way through a fairly detailed storyboard for like a 2-minute animation for a client, a couple client bids, and then I've been doing a little bit more of this guy, which I hope to finish up tonight during the show. And then I have done about 30 pull-ups, maybe 45 pull-ups since the last time we've met, because I'm doing about 24 a day now. And I am down to 173 pounds from 186 pounds.
Wow.
So still keeping up with that, intermittent fasting and really minor exercise. So so that's good. So not a ton of visible stuff, but some progress. So
yeah. I love it. All right. Scott, what all have you gotten accomplished since Artcheck?
Not much. I don't know. I'm still kind of battling this whole thing, but I guess that'll be in challenges. But
yeah,
let's see what I did get done. I've been working on just finalizing the Inktober stuff. I've also scanned all my Inktober artwork and basically stitched it all together because it's like one giant connecting piece when it's all together. And then my goal was to animate that or basically just as something simple, just to scroll through that. It's something that I could put on Instagram and Facebook and everything. And I'm running into problems with that. I don't think the software that I use for videos can export at that square size that Instagram has. And then so I try to do it in Photoshop, and I did it as an animation in Photoshop, just as a frame animation. And it just looks choppy. So I'm trying to figure out some way to do it smooth. So I might have to talk to Corey about that.
Do you have Creative Cloud?
I do have Creative Cloud. I had Premiere. Oh, I've got Premiere on my computer, but I mean, I went to go look at it like a tutorial, and I'm like, that's why I wanted to talk to you, because I'm guessing this is just my theory, but I'm guessing this is something like super simple, but for somebody who doesn't even know anything about like Premiere, it's probably taken me forever. So after the show, if I can run that by you, and maybe you can tell me what I need to do or whatever, because I think it's fairly simple, I'm guessing, but I don't know.
I can tell you in like 2 seconds how to do it in After Effects. I'd have to poke around in Premiere because I have trouble resizing things in Premiere. But After Effects, you press Control K, and then you can choose whatever size you want.
Okay. And then, but even the motion part of it, I'm not really sure how to do that. How do you just get it scrolling and everything? So
yeah, that's easy. I can help you.
Okay, cool. So. All right, and so there's that. Let's see. I had to ship some orders out. One thing that I did that kind of took me a little longer than I thought, but that was just because I totally got into it. But I just put out a new video, and I had a lot of fun with this one because it was sort of, I wanted to do some sort of Halloween themed video, and I'm like, I'm running out of time. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I did this video that's all like client horror stories. But I basically do my best, like Vincent Price, and kind of get into character, and tell these 2 or 3 stories of just client horror stories. And so I started off, I was just going to do the intro. I was going to kind of put on that affect and do that in the intro and the outro. And then I started getting into it so much, I actually did the whole stories. And there's also a pretty cool like sketch cover of me doing Ghost Rider. So, it's a video. It's one of those videos that, it was different, and I just had a lot of fun with it. So if you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out, because I think anyone will get a kick out of it.
And I got to tell you, that probably is the best thumbnail I've ever seen you do.
Yeah, I really and one of the things that I noticed in the past, whenever I did a Halloween episode, was after Halloween, it's like 0 views, and so you kind of have to find that sweet spot, And I was like, should I post this Halloween? I'm like, no, I need at least another day. But I purposely designed it so it can be a Halloween episode. When you watch it, it definitely is. But just the client horror stories and the Ghost Rider thing could be any video. And I didn't put Halloween anywhere in the thumbnail or anything. So hopefully it'll be a little more evergreen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was really happy with the way that thumbnail turned out too. Partially it was because the lighting and everything, and it's kind of, I kind of did some like real quick different set dressing and everything in the underground layer and everything. So, but I had a lot of fun with it. So it took a few takes and everything, because it was kind of off the cuff, but I might do some outtakes for my Patreon. It wasn't anything like super funny other than just me kind of messing up. So it might be fun to like do some of those outtakes. But,
smart.
Yeah.
I love it, and I think that's a great theme too, because like one thing that will, like, any freelancer will relate to is like the occasional conversation you usually have with other freelancers anyway, which is like, what's your worst client? Like, what's the worst thing that ever have you ever had a guy not pay an invoice? Like, have you ever had the eternal revision guy? Like, there's just, so I'm excited.
Yeah. And I may have, the thing is, I may have told these stories, I think I may have told these stories not too long ago on a live stream. So that's one of the reasons why, like, I really need to do this whole thing in this spooky voice, this character. It was kind of like, kind of my homage to like either Creep Show or Tales from the Crypt or whatever, so yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
I'm so excited. And that'll be good for Halloween. I'm
yeah. Have you guys seen it?
Not yet.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
I've been meaning to.
Tell me what you think, because it was a lot of fun. I had fun with it.
Yeah, I noticed the thumbnail and I was like, I've got to watch that one. But it's been a crazy day. So
yeah. I was pretty distracted by California being on fire.
yeah.
But anyhow, we'll get into that with struggles or whatever. Okay, so for me, let me kind of share what I got. Although I'm gonna have to.
I'm just gonna call something up. Ryan from Dream Syndicate says some creators put outtakes at the end, which increase watch time. Kind of create a thing to watch at the end for. Yeah, and I've done that before, and I thought about doing it this time, but I also want to do some stuff for the Patreon supporters and stuff too. So
awesome. Yeah. And Salazar also said it was an awesome video. And then before that, he actually mentioned accountability buddies from South Park.
Okay, that's probably. I think that's where I heard it from. It's from South Park, then I think.
So let me pull this up. Oh, it's already pulled up. So basically, I got. I'm sharing the wrong screen. Hold on a sec. Fail. Hang on a second. There we go. Boom. Okay. So it's not doing the whole Inception thing. So basically, I've finished the rough pencils for the first panel, and then this last panel is what I'm working on now. Although I think I have to adjust the nose to kind of come down to here, and like the eye might actually kind of, because I want it to be on model with the character. So anyhow, but that's what I'm going to be working on today, and that's what I got done. And then outside of that, how do I stop this? Stop screen. Okay, good. The other thing I got done was vocals for we're working on. Initially, we've been calling it a demo, but it's coming out so well that at this point it's kind of an EP.
Cool.
But anyhow, so we finished vocals for 2 tracks, and that's basically our next thing, is just trying to get vocals down before we do mixing and adding little things and stuff. So that was pretty cool, and we did vocals yesterday, and I was stoked that we got to knock out like 2 songs, because we're recording these things like we kind of get to the studio at like 7, and then everybody in our band has like a day job, and half of us have families and stuff, so it's like, we have like 2-hour windows to record, which is not a lot of time. So I felt pretty good with that like limitation of doing two songs. And then that guitar project I've been working on, I finally got to like plug it in and really check out the pickups and stuff, and it was a success. So I'm pretty stoked about that. It's like a meaty, just like crunchy, surfy, like bluesy kind of guitar now, and that adds like another little tool to the toolkit. So I'm pretty excited about that. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I got done. Oh, and then workout wise, I've completely failed. In the last 2 days, I haven't done my workout at all. So my hope is to get right back on that train probably tomorrow. So
my guess is you've got a pretty valid reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been, like I didn't get home from recording until about like 10:30 at night. So, and then, And
then like your state is on fire.
Yeah. So I've been spending a lot of time on freeways, like getting rerouted and stuff. So today I felt lucky because I got home. I managed to time it perfectly and avoided all the backup and craziness. So
that's cool. I thought it was going to be another 2-man Artcast.
Yeah, it might have been. It was a possibility because there was a night. Well, I mean, you guys know about it, but there was a night where I didn't get home. Like I left at 3 and didn't end up getting home till like 10, and that's like a 1 to 2 hour drive that turned into like, 9 hours on the road. So, yeah. Anyhow, so let's get into basically, what
challenges.
What were your challenges while we were doing this?
So I have the opposite problem as you, Josh. My state right now is frozen. So my wife is doing a play about 90 miles from our house, and so it's like closing night tomorrow. But she got frozen out. The freeway froze over, and so like the whole freeway is a sheet of black ice because it was freezing rain instead of snow because there wasn't any wind. So she luckily like kind of saw that and crashed at a friend's house. But there were some people in the play that like spun across like 4 lanes of traffic, and there's all kinds. I mean, the cops basically shut the freeway down, and it was nuts. And so I walked to work this morning. It was 0 degrees outside. So anyway, all of that just adds time because it takes me time to like put all the layers on, and it's like longer because there's like about 18 inches of snow. Wow, that's an exaggeration. Probably got 10 inches of snow that I'm walking through.
I'm such a wimp. It was like 60 degrees and I had gloves on and I had my hoodie up and everything. And
yeah, I've been feeling cold at like where I'm like, oh, it's getting to like 73 degrees.
But that wind, man, I'm not used to that wind.
No.
Yeah, wind will kill you, man. It's I mean, if it's above -10, I can handle it as long as it's not windy. Yeah. But if it's windy and it's like 33, I'm like, holy crap, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, so, I woke up this morning to find all my tombstones were gone again after I put them all back up and reinforced them and everything. And this wind was even stronger than before. This time I had to actually chase some of them down. They were in other people's yards and stuff. But
that's funny.
I put them back up again, so we'll see if it's windy again tonight or tomorrow.
You need to do like a Wyatt Earp like parody of Tombstone with like you and the tombstones versus the wind.
Yeah.
Oh man. Cool. Well, that's a bit of a struggle, but that weather stuff can be pretty tough. What about you, Scott? Like,
so challenges, it's weird. It seems like I should have more time now, but it's like I'm still like just struggling to get to like my actual projects. All these other little things, these certain things pop up. Some of it's like just family things that kind of unexpected. Some of it's just whatever, but some of it's like with that video where it took a little longer, but I was happy with the way it came out, so I don't really care about that. But I think I just kind of realized that this week is it's kind of gonna be for the most part a loss as far as the big projects that I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
Just with Halloween tomorrow, I got a lot of stuff I want to do for Halloween, so I'm just gonna, maybe Friday I'll get back on the horse, but if not, I mean, I'm pretty much, I don't have my kids this weekend, so it's basically just me. So I think this weekend I'm just going to kind of grind and get back to everything, and get back, catch up and everything. So
yeah, I think for me it's been just a time thing where it's like, with the fires and work and family life and all of that, and then my silly side project of the guitar and stuff, it's like just finding the time to kind of maintain my habit that I've already built, like to make sure I'm retaining it, of doing like the creating is really, I can already tell like today, especially like the workout thing, I'm like, okay, now it's in danger because it's been 2 days. Like if I miss one day, I'm not too worried. If I miss 2, that's like a red flag. So I'm like, if I miss tomorrow, that's going to be a month. That'll be a year.
Yeah.
And like kind of there with, like, luckily with the comic, I've managed to maintain it, but still I'm really cognizant that I'm like, okay, I'm already dropping one thing, so I got to be careful,
Yeah, as far as the workout thing, I forgot to mention. I mean, that's one thing that I have been fairly consistent on. I've been still jog, even though it's cold and windy. I mean, there was like no one out this morning. I've got a park by my house, but then there's a bigger park. It's like a city park that I jog to, where there's a dog park. Sometimes, usually in the evening, I'll take my dog there, or at least around the park by my house. But so I jogged to the city park today, and there's a big giant lake there, and I mean, usually it's like a calm lake, you know, you got ducks and everything. But today it was like, there were seriously like rolling waves coming into the shore from the wind and stuff. I'd never seen it like that. It was crazy. But yeah, there was like no one else out that, you know, over at the park. It was just too windy and cold, but I was out there. So I'm not, you know, so yeah, I'm still doing that and everything and eating pretty well. Although tomorrow all bets are off because I think I'm going to go and because I got to go to Starbucks and wait while my son's at school. And I'm, you know, usually I just go there and get the cheapest, lowest fat thing there, just so I don't feel like I don't want to go into a Starbucks and sit there and work without ordering anything. So I just order the cheapest, the lowest calorie thing. But tomorrow I'm going to get some kind of a, you know, pumpkin thing or something. And then, you know, and then we've got a block party we're doing, so I'm making like bacon wrapped water chestnuts and stuff, and we're gonna gonna kind of go off the diet for tomorrow, so it should be fun.
I think I think Halloween fair play.
Oh yeah. I have to enjoy Halloween. So
yeah, my wife is playing it safe. She sent me a text today and she said, "I bought all the candy that we hate, so that we're not tempted to eat it for Halloween."
Yeah, I'm usually pretty good with that. I'm not so much of a sweet every once in a while, or I'll just make sure that the kids take it or whatever, and it's kind of out of the house or whatever. But like my mom goes crazy with like the treats and stuff. She made these crazy cupcakes, and they've been sitting on my counter. I haven't indulged yet, but one of them's for me, so maybe tomorrow I'll eat one of those.
I usually just kind of steal a few candies from Benji because he doesn't eat all that candy. So
yeah.
But that's the funny thing. I usually don't think I'm that bad, but around Halloween I'm usually pretty bad with it because I'm like, oh, forgot about these. I like these.
Yeah,
like that kind of, you know. Anyhow, so okay, let's get into plans.
Is me. So plans for me, I'm going to finish this mouse thing that I'm working on. Hopefully do that tonight. And I'm going to wrap up the storyboards and start like designing the assets in Illustrator for that. So
nice. Victor Rodriguez says candy corn yuck, and actually that just reminds me of this very funny meme, and I think they made like stuffed animal candy corn like that, where it's like this little chibi candy corn with a smile and it looks all adorable, and it's like, I taste disgusting.
That is so funny because I am drawing a candy corn right now for a client, a cute candy corn with the face on it. And a caramel apple and everything, which is weird because I just now realized that Halloween's tomorrow, so this must be for next year because you know, it's a little too late for this year.
Yeah, either that or like a late maybe. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that's just flavored wax. Stuff's gross.
Yeah, I don't like candy corns really. But.
And if you're gonna go candy corn, just go with like the mini pumpkins because at least it's the same flavor, but at least it's a cool little pumpkin. All right, so Scott, what about you? What are your plans?
Well, I guess I kind of already talked about it a little bit. Tomorrow's just going to be mostly Halloween. I don't know if I'll get much done. Hopefully I'll be able to get this video done, and if Corey can kind of give me some tips on how to get that thing done, because I would be so upset if I did all this whole thing and I couldn't get this video done, because so far I'm kind of depending that I'm wondering if I should have done Inktober. I think I can still I know I can still do something with the project, but as far as trying to build my Instagram audience, I mean, nothing. I don't think it really did much. I mean, it's, I don't think it really grew my audience that much, even posting every day and everything like that. And I think at this point, that hashtag, I mean, there's billions and millions. I mean, it's just like, I think even trying to niche down with some of the lesser known hashtags, because I mean, I did like Inktober, and then Inktober prompts, Inktober, and then whatever that particular prompt was, and then Inktober day, blah, 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 and all this stuff, and then some other hashtags. And I don't know. I was kind of hoping this one might catch on because it's something a little different than the average Inktober stuff, but it's just, it hasn't really, hasn't really done much. So it's just it was one of those things where, and I've done this before, where it's like, I really don't have time to do this. I said to myself, no, I'm not going to do it. And then at the last minute, I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. And then once I decide I'm going to do something, if it's a challenge, I don't stop unless, there's something major life crisis happens or something, which wasn't the case. So, but yeah, so anyway, I kind of got off track there. Sorry. But like I said before, just this weekend, I think I'm just going to try to hit stuff hard and get back to work on, my digital products and my video series that I'm doing and all this other stuff. So, yeah.
Good. So for me, my plans are to basically do I'd like to at least have type pencils, because I think I've already kind of finished that last panel, the rough pencils. So now I just need to really go over and refine let me share it again just to kind of show what I'm talking about. So there's a couple weird things I'm gonna refine some of the stuff, like the through line on this, like the eyes were off, her shoulder looks dislocated, right? There's just some stuff in a rough pass at pencils that are gonna look kind of weird, and I can kind of polish up and make look less weird. And so that's what I'm gonna be doing, and hopefully have a good start at it. I don't know. I mean, these crowd panels take a while, but I'm imagining type pencils won't be as bad, but still I'm gonna say I'd like to be at least halfway through. Although it is Monday, so hopefully I'm through with the first panel by then. And that's pretty much it. And then other than that, I would like to just basically that's basically my only plan for creative stuff. Yeah. So.
You're closing in, man.
Mm-hmm. Getting there. And then I am kind of excited about all the book interiors. I've been designing it to where every 32 pages there's a fake cover. And so I'm going to do that. I have to do one for this third one. And then I have to do the overall book cover, the back matter. I probably should start. Well, I got to kind of come up with a dummy book so I can get some pulled books and stuff too. But there's a whole bunch of stuff like that I got to work out, which is kind of fun to start turning the cogs on. So yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Cool. So we'll follow up on the next art check. Hopefully we hit all these things. So let's transition to Artcasters. So we were kind of toying with a couple potential topics, and the one we all kind of seem to dig. Let me take away this screen again. But the one we all seem to kind of be drawn to today was just kind of talking about how cool it is to actually do what we do. And the reason I thought that might be a fun topic was we'll often have episodes where we get into the weeds of industry, or we'll talk about struggles or things that are how to properly bill for clients and hit from the professional side. But I do feel sometimes what might get lost in that conversation is the fact that what we do is actually pretty rad.
Yeah.
And so I thought actually that might be a cool topic, because I think we all feel that way, but I don't know how often we get to express it, or we express it on here. Kind of how rad it is to do what we do for a living. And so, yeah, I don't know. So any thoughts on that? I mean, I guess to kick it off, I would say like, what do you guys personally like about what you do for a living? Like what is it that, is so great about what we do for a living? You know, and then I guess we'll just go from there. I don't know.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You go ahead, Scott. I was just gonna say I'm gonna leave. I'm not gonna be looking at the thing. I'm gonna leave my screen up. If I'm doing something interesting, feel free to pull it up. But I'm interested in what Scott has to say. So go ahead, Scott.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, just recently, like I said, when I was kind of putting together this video that I just put out, kind of this Halloween type video, it was because I do videos all the time, and sometimes it becomes a little rote, like there's a formula to it and everything. And I do enjoy making videos and everything, but this one was so different. I just kind of like, I set out to do as quick of a video. This is one that, you know, some videos I had planned a little better than others, and this was sort of like, I don't even know. I know I got to do some kind of Halloween. I got a couple topics written down, and then I thought, oh no. And then this kind of came to me, what if I do these client horror stories, but I do it as like a horror story? And it just, when I started getting into it, I mean, I didn't like practice any voices. I just started talking, and I'm like, oh man, it feels like I'm kind of channeling Vincent Price combined with like Orson Welles or something. And it was like, and I just, you know, I had filmed the intro, and then I went to do some kind of errand, or maybe I went jogging. I don't remember. But as whatever I was doing in my head, I'm like, what can I talk about? Okay, because I don't script these things out, but I kind of going through, what can I say about this particular thing, and trying to think, well, I want to use language that's kind of spooky, and maybe say some phrases that I normally wouldn't say that kind of pertains to, you know, like kind of like a horror host. So I just started really getting into it. And even though, I mean, I guess YouTube's definitely part of what I do. I mean, it's a big part of what I do, but it's not like I'm making a living off of it. So even especially, and I think this is good advice for people who aren't quite maybe even making a living, because I don't want this whole thing to be like, oh man, this is great, we get to do whatever we want. But I think, like Josh had a good point, was that we don't often talk about that. I mean, sometimes we talk about the kind of the sticking points and the hardships of kind of doing this, when really, I mean, there's nothing that I would rather be doing, and we really shouldn't, you know, we really should be a little more appreciative that we're lucky enough that we get to do this kind of stuff. So that was just something that that I don't know, for you know, it just kind of made me realize how great this is, that I get to do this kind of stuff and get to have fun doing all this and everything. So yeah, I don't know. That's, you know.
Yeah, I've always loved making things. I've always loved creating things, and there's something about bringing something into existence that just wasn't there before, that is just, it still blows my mind. It's like this magic, you know, and like we go in and like, you know, that thing didn't exist, and now it moves, or now it's making people think or whatever. And I had a student recently. I was asking, because I ask at the beginning of each semester, I was like, you know, I always ask him, hey, why are you taking this class? Like, what have you heard about it or whatever? And she said, this is kind of embarrassing, but I've been a fan of yours for a couple of years now, and I am like starstruck and super excited to be here, and just, I love what you do. And I was like, that's the first time that's happened, and like in person. I was like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. And so like, I mean, like that doesn't happen to accountants, you know, like you don't have, like I read a comic by Pepper today that he sent me. I'm pretty sure he hasn't released it yet. And it was such a touching, beautiful, heart-wrenching thing that I love that we have this ability to create stuff that evokes emotion and changes things for people and gets people to think about things and experience things. Whereas like if I was a CPA, you know, people would be like, yep, that dude does my taxes and he's good at it, but I haven't like made a difference in their life or like added to some belief system that they have or changed the way that they think about something doing that. And like art has the ability to move the world. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily expect anything that I create to do that, like on a worldwide scale, but like I know every once in a while someone will see something that I've created and it'll change. It becomes a part of them. There's like this, I don't know, there's something just really neat about creativity and the fact that like as human beings, we're really social animals and we rely on each other for our socialization. And a big part of that is the stories that we tell and the art that we make and the music that we listen to, you know, and to be a part of the positive side of humanity is super rewarding.
Yeah. It's funny. I think what brought this to my mind as like a potential topic for the future was like, I had this moment the other day at work where I was like drawing a dinosaur and I was feeling really stressed out about like the deadline. And I'm like, I just got to get this T-Rex right. And then I had this moment of like, wait a minute, I'm drawing a T-Rex right. And I'm on the clock. And I have to my job is just to make it look cool.
Right.
Like, and I was like, I just had that moment of like realizing like, you know, like if I told like an 11-year-old me, like, you know, one day you're going to get paid to like draw like a T-Rex and that's going to be your stressful day job. Like, you know, I would have been like, are you crazy? That's the coolest job ever. So it's funny because I think what we get to do, even if it's not doing direct creative stuff like drawing or anything like that, it's all surrounding creativity. It's either leading other people being creative, it's teaching people how to be creative. And we're kind of expected to be outside of the box, and that's kind of awesome. Like most jobs want you in a box, like and yet our job is literally to create the box, like create our own box and then like think outside of it all the time. And it's just a really cool and interesting thing. And then like on top of that, like what you were just saying, the fact that we can actually craft stories and you know, impact people and like make something that can emote like an emotion from people. Like we're not just doing data. That's, I don't know, it's a pretty cool and rare thing. And kind of brings to mind like when I was at Adobe Max, they had now I'm gonna blank out on his name, the guy with the beard who's always at Adobe.
Draplin?
Yeah. So Draplin was there, and he like there was a construction site like right by the Adobe Max where like they were working on like a skyrise. And he was like, I don't know if you guys noticed, like on your way in here, like that construction site. He's like, there's guys out there like sweating and bleeding and like making this thing. And he's like, and I'm paid like, and they're getting paid to do that, and that's hard work, and that's good for them. He's like, but I'm getting paid from like I'm just clicking a mouse, and I'm getting paid. He's like, I'm getting paid pretty similarly, like just to click a mouse and like push stuff around and make stuff. He's like, and I'll take that any day out of like laboring in the hot sun. And I was like, yes. Anyhow, so yeah, like I don't know. I feel like that's pretty cool.
You know? I've dug holes for a living before.
Yeah,
when I was younger, and it's terrible.
Yep.
It is back-breaking, horrible work. And so like to be able to do magic and just like make stuff that I enjoy doing or make stuff that I enjoy the process of creating is it still blows me away that that's something that is possible.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's like I definitely know it's like it's like I've worked my butt off to get here, but I also realize it's not like entirely earned. Like meaning I'm very lucky to do it.
Right.
There's a lot of people who are like super talented that aren't that fortunate and like have work equally as hard. So I don't know. It's to me it's just kind of cool that I've said this before on here, but it's like anytime we're managing to make money doing art or like last another day on an artist's income, I feel like you're kind of cheating fate or cheating the system a little bit. And it's kind of awesome.
Yeah. Victor's saying, I'm trying to visualize a CPA getting excited for saving the extra % of money for the client and feeling like a rock star. And I actually know CPAs like that. There was this dude, he was the coolest guy. And he's from East LA. And he was this flamboyant dude. And he would like, whenever he would find a place where he would like find money or he'd find like some sort of deal or something where he would burst out of his office, just like fist punching the air, like running down the hall, screaming about like $20 that he just saved the company or whatever. And I was like, that dude is living the best life that he's going to live. Like he loves being an accountant. So there are some people that are like that.
Yeah. It's like, there's certain things like, for instance, like people who do coding, to me, that's like that. I look at that and like, that's insane. But it's problem solving, and and the little times that I have done, what little coding I've done, whether it's a little bit of HTML, which I hardly know any, but when I have to go in and do something and it actually works, I'm like, oh my God, it works. But on a larger scale, I mean, problem solving, things like that, I can see how people get excited about that and fascinated. So it's different for different people. I mean, any job, if you it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, you could really love it, and but for me, I mean, the creative thing, that's always what I've done, and that's always what I want to do. And it's not, it's great that there are accountants out there that get so excited about that kind of thing. But I don't know if that's the case for the majority or whatever. But yeah, this doing this art thing and doing what I've always wanted to do. Yeah, I really can't complain.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I often I'll kind of think about like when I used to work at like graveyard shifts at like this AM PM. I remember one or two times, because I was the guy who worked there who could draw, like my boss would ask me to draw something and I'd feel excited because I'd be like, oh dude, I'm getting paid to draw right now. I don't have to like work the register. I can just do this thing I like to do. And feeling like, oh, okay, this is something I'm actually good at, like no one else here can do. Like I can do it and they can't. Like,
yeah, that's I probably told this story, but like when I, not my first job, because my first job was actually, like Corey said, was pretty much digging ditches for my dad's swimming pool company, digging spas and ditches.
Oh, that's rough too.
And were you doing it by hand?
Shovel, yeah.
Oh man, I mean, it's just terrible. It's just terrible.
And my dad would just like leave me, or sometimes I rope a friend in. Like one time, he just my friend was just telling my dad this story about, I can't believe you did, because they basically he dropped me off at this house. He says, okay, we need to lay, there needs to be some plumbing that's going to go from here to here. We needed to dig ditches and everything. And this ground was so, I mean, it was just like, you could not dig. Yeah, I mean, you just could not dig through it, and he just left us there. And this was before cell phones or anything. So we just we did what we could, but we just like waited, and eventually he came back and he's like, you guys didn't do anything. And like, he goes, come, and he takes a shovel. And he goes, damn, this ground is hard. So he ended up getting us a jackhammer, but yeah, so we were just there, and I think that was this might have been a different time, but you had to deal with one time we had to deal with this swarm of bees and all kinds of crazy stuff, but so that was my first job, but eventually, when I was in high school, I got a job bagging groceries and stuff, and then I kind of like Josh was saying, that the people that you come in and they stock the snack shelves from Frito-Lay and stuff. I was doing they were having me do these little signs. The grocery store was having me do these little signs, and because I'm like, well, if I'm going to do a sign, I'm going to do it good. So I'm drawing all the logos of all the products, and the Frito-Lay people saw it, and then eventually they hired me to do stuff on go to different stores and do that kind of stuff, and then even build these big displays. When Sun Chips first came out, they were building this one display where they brought in a big speedboat, and then they had a a parasail, or what do they call them? And they wanted me to create a 3-dimensional character for the Sun Chips that was parasailing. So I designed the character. It was pretty generic. It was a sun with glasses and everything. But yeah, so we did him and had him cut hang gliding and stuff. So yeah, so I got to do stuff like that. It was pretty fun. Yeah.
But isn't it interesting? I don't know. To me, I guess why that always stands out in my head is I can get jaded sometimes with what I'm doing, and forget how much I want to do what I'm doing. To the point where when I was getting minimum wage and working a terrible job, I was just stoked to get minimum wage and be able to draw for 20 minutes, and it's just and like you were saying, working on Frito-Lay, but at the time that was probably the coolest thing ever, right? Because you're not having to stock groceries,
right? Yeah,
something creative, and So what's weird is, I guess I can sometimes forget how cool it is just to be that's all we do all day. We just have to be creative all day. So that Frito-Lay thing, that's your life now. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, because for a while they would just okay, we needed to draw some signs. So I would just go to the deli where they had the tables, and I'd be sitting down drawing them. And of course, I took my time. I could have banged those things out so quickly, but I took forever with these. I could just sit there and do this very slowly and meticulously, and not go out and pick up grocery carts and bag groceries.
Uh-huh.
And then of course all the other courtesy clerks and everything, they got they were they weren't too happy about that, but I got to do all that. But hey, you should have learned how to draw. So
right. Yeah. I don't know why we're telling hole digging stories just real quick, and this is kind of as by way of saying how excited I am that I don't have to do that anymore. But I was digging sprinkler systems. So I was digging trenches for sprinkler systems. So I had a little tractor with an auger on the back. And this guy, about 6 inches below the surface, had just giant, 5 foot in diameter boulders, every couple of feet. He had just built his house on this boulder graveyard or something. And so I ended up going through and dropping the auger straight down and then ripping through. So I'm digging 4-foot holes. This is in the 90s. And so he was running an internet business, which just seemed weird to me because nobody did that. And I dug a hole so deep as I was ripping through this boulder. And I'm like the teeth on the auger are 3 or 4 inches, and they're just chipping away at these rocks, for hours. And every time it hits, the whole cage vibrates. And I'm just being jarred 2 or 3 times a second as this basically a giant chainsaw tries to cut through a boulder. And I cut through this boulder, and on the other side of the boulder was his telephone line.
Oh.
And I didn't realize, I started to hear this weird noise. I was like, oh, I made it through. And it's all soft dirt. But then I started to hear this. And I was like, what is that noise? And I looked up at the noise, and a row of telephone poles was having the telephone line rip off the pole.
Oh,
and I was like, what is going on? And then I look behind me, and I have a coil of telephone wire, probably like 100 feet of and so I took out the entire neighborhood.
Oh no.
Took out the entire neighborhood's telephone line. And then later that day, I was electrocuted, completely unrelated to that. My bosses were kind of cheap, and so they didn't call like the people that like tell you where the pipes are.
Oh no.
And so we fixed that, and I was like, oh man, I'm really sorry. So like, then they're like, all right, dig this hole, like just stay shallow. I'm like, okay, sorry, yeah. So I'm like 17, so I'm driving this tractor, and this guy had illegally built a guest house on his property, and to make sure that the government didn't know about it, he ran his own water main and his own electricity. And so he just took like a 3-inch water main and just piped it off of the city's one, and then did direct burial wire directly underneath that in the same trench. And since I didn't know where anything was, I ripped through his water main and the direct burial electrical wire. And I didn't realize that because it was underneath. So there's this big geyser of water. So normally what I do is I reach down and I try to figure out, like, what is it? What's the problem? Can I fix it really fast or whatever? So I reach into the water to try to get the pipes, not knowing it is charged like 220 volt, like charged all of the water. And I curled up like all of my muscles. I just like curled up in a ball, just convulsing as this water kept like electrocuting me. And eventually I was able to kind of like roll out of the way. And I was like, anyway, so every time I start to get frustrated with like drawing pictures for a living or like making stuff move, and just animating stuff, I'm like, at least I'm not being like electrocuted in the summer in a hole that I dug myself. Like basically what could have been my grave, It's just like, it's the worst. Anyway, Benjamin's asking what software I'm using. I am using a combination of Illustrator, Photoshop, and After Effects right now. So anyway, so there's a couple of my that by roundabout ways is why I'm really grateful to like do this. I'll tell one more. I don't want this necessarily to be a horror story situation, but
well, it's apropos.
When I was 12 years old, my parents shipped me off to Grandpa's farm, to like learn the value of $1. He retired 2 years later, and so none of my siblings had to do this. But he had a farm in Kalinga, California, which is near Death Valley. It's not a pleasant place. It's like Fresno looks like a vacation resort compared to Kalinga, and so I'm in Kalinga, and it's a college farm because he was a professor, and so he's a professor of agronomy, and so it had like experimental stuff going on, not weird experiments, but like they're like, I wonder if we can get a higher yield by doing X or whatever. And so I'm in the middle of like the valley of California, not the pleasant part near the ocean, but the nasty part in the middle where it's just hot and horrible. And it's like 90 to 100 degrees outside, and I'm weeding fields of cotton and sugar beets and like baby's breath and like all these different crops by hand. So I'm walking with like a short-handled like 12-inch like backhoe, and I've got like my straw hat on and everything, and I'm going. And I spent a week wading through treated sewage because they were testing out to see if they could get like their fertilizer and their water in the same mixture. And so it's like 100 degrees outside. I'm 12, and I'm wading through treated sewage water to pull weeds for 8 hours. And sometimes I think, oh man, that meeting was really annoying. And then I think, yeah, but I'm literally not up to my knees in crap. So like, which I've literally been in.
Yeah.
And so, somebody's mad at me at work or something. Who cares? This is great.
Oh yeah.
So.
And what's funny to me is I have like a lot of stories similar, like cleaning restrooms and stuff like that are good go-tos if I ever am like, oh, I'm like, not feeling so great or whatever. I'm like, well, that's a good go-to.
Yes.
Like, I'm not cleaning the women's restroom, which, by the way, women's restrooms are the worst, at least at movie theaters. Just so you know. If you have to clean one, choose the men's. But anyhow, so but like I'll forget, and it's amazing to me how quickly as creatives we can kind of forget what we do is pretty cool. And I remember this happened really recently. It's like 2 weeks ago. The place we're recording, there's a lot of guys who kind of hang out there at the studio. And I'm talking to one of them, and he's like, "Oh, how was your day?" And I kind of start complaining about work a little bit. And then he's like, "Yeah, so today was pretty tough because like the body had like rigor mortis and stuff." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I drive dead bodies. That's my job." And I was like, "Oh, now I feel like a complete asshole." Like, here I've been complaining. Yeah, it's really tough. I have to do this stuff, and then like they want changes, and they're not pretty and stuff like that. And then meanwhile, like this dude like has to pick up dead people all day, and you know what I mean? Like, which by the way, like whatever you got to do to make a living, but it's like I think sometimes we can kind of forget what we do for a living is pretty cool, comparatively, So, but it's funny to me. I guess it's amazing to me how quickly sometimes I will forget that. And even though I have that experience of like having worked on some terrible jobs, it's like I do have moments of just like very easily forgetting it. I wonder what that is. Maybe just getting used to it. I don't know.
There's that line that it always comes to me, but it's from a Joe Walsh song. But it's where he says he's the basic of I forgot the name of the song, but it's all about how he's a rock star and the whole life of a rock star. And he says sometimes I can't complain, but sometimes I still do.
Yeah.
And sometimes we find ourselves doing that. It's like, why are we complaining?
Yeah, and I mean, I do think there's like, this is something we get into, sometimes often here where it's like there is like this kind of jaded view, or not jaded, like a disingenuous view where people will be like, and when you do this for a living, everything's rainbows. And it's like, no, it's hard. It's work, but it's fun work. And it's like the kind of work we wanted to do. And I think that's like, kind of the thing. If like you love what you do, it's like a really good centering point through like the hardships that come along with whatever you love doing. Like if you actually love it, it kind of makes it much more worthwhile. Whereas like if you're waiting in crap and you like absolutely have no passion for agriculture,
right,
then you don't have anything to cling to when you're like doing the crap, because it's like there's not really a like, yeah, but like then I'll get a great yield, because you're like, I don't care about yields. Like this isn't what I want to do,
Yeah.
But if it's what you want to do, then you could be like, yeah, well, it's worth the crap because I'll get a good yield, and I kind of feel like that's one of the beauties of the fact that we've been able to somehow finagle doing what we love for a living. And I think it's possible for most people to try to make that happen, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's, and I think kind of falling in love with the process is really important too.
100%.
Because like there are definitely times like you mentioned like the farming thing, and like I know ranchers and farmers that they put up with a lot of crap, sometimes very literally, but they do see a benefit in that because they're excited for the results that they're getting, and so to a certain extent it is like that where they're like this isn't great, but at the same time like I'm pretty stoked about the results that I'm going to get in a bit or whatever. And it's kind of like that. Like, I don't necessarily like or enjoy like everything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I sure like a lot of the results that I get from doing a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's perfectly put. Because I think there are things about art, or like a good example, like, I mean, art directing, I think I mentioned this like sometime recently when we were doing something, but it's like there's this weird perception sometimes from people who haven't art directed or been creative directors where they're like, I'll get there and then I'll get to call the shots and everything. And it's like, no, you get up there and like it's just more complicated and more muddled and more insane. So there's a little more stress to it than like the lower positions in a creative department,
Yeah.
But at the same time, so it's like it is definitely one of those things like where you kind of have to really appreciate the wading through it because you love it, And so that's the part that's kind of interesting. Is like it's definitely not easy, and it's weird because I have had occasional days where I'm like, I miss doing cash registers at a mini mart at midnight when like people were coming in and potentially robbing me, sometimes actually robbing me.
Yeah.
There's days where I'm like, well, if I could, I would go back to that. But those are rare days because, like, once again, it's like, I'll then remember, like, what I wanted to do and what I want to do still is what I'm actually doing.
Yeah.
That's kind of it's just a weird point to be at, I think. And it's of course never going to be exactly how you design it, but it's an interesting thing to actually make that happen, and a whole confluence of like of chance and hard work and kind of like a bunch of weird, odd things that all kind of align to allow that to happen,
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, like, I'm curious. I'm curious if there are things that you guys look forward to in what you're doing, and so maybe something that you don't get to do a lot now, but things where you're like, I'm really excited for when X happens or something like that. Because I think, like, for me, like, looking forward to stuff is interesting and kind of an entertaining way to kind of be motivated and whatever.
Mm-hmm. Things we're looking forward to. Interesting. Anyone want to hit that first?
Well, I've got well, like for instance, the comic book. I'm looking forward to getting back into doing that because I've been kind of away from it for a while. I really haven't done. I mean, I've done a lot of comic-centric stuff. This whole series I'm working on is about comics, and all my digital tools are about comics. But actually working on my own personal comic, it's been a while. So I'm anxious to dive back into that, and this is kind of the home stretch. Whether it's one more issue or two more issues. I mean, I'm going to write them together. So it's going to be basically, once I start that, it's going to be, kind of figuring out how this story all, comes together. I mean, I kind of know the ending and I know where it's going, but how, the putting all those pieces together, I'm looking forward to doing that. I'd like to get back to doing I've got some ideas for some prints. I haven't really done any prints for a while, and I kind of want to, I kind of stretched the boundaries of what I thought I could do, like with the sequential art and stuff when I did like the 100s and stuff like that. And I really want to do that with illustration too. I kind of want to do like, I don't know, a triptych or something, and like just kind of dive into like a new style, something just, I don't know, something a little different, or just take something to the next level as far as the finished piece. Because most, if you watch my videos and stuff, you'll notice a lot of what I do are just like mostly sketches. It's been a while since I've really done some polished, kind of completed, finalized artwork. So that's something I'm looking forward to doing. And I'm also looking forward to, my goal is to get to the point where I'm not reliant so much on client work, where I can build an audience and I can just create what I want to create. And there's people out there who want to support what I create and everything. And I think everything I'm doing is kind of leading to that. But when that sort of, I was going to say when that day comes, I don't know if that's actually a day that actually will come. I think it's like more of a gradual type thing that, I'm sure hopefully now that I get the Patreon, eventually it'll start growing more and everything like that. But, it all takes a little bit of time, but eventually I'm looking forward to getting to that point. So, yeah.
That's cool. For me, I feel like I'm definitely looking forward to having a fully published graphic novel that's mine. 100%
cool.
mine. I'm really excited about that. And also, like, keep in mind, anything I say I'm looking forward to, I'm probably also full of trepidation and fear about.
Yeah, likewise.
Because there's a really weird thing that happens when you get what you want in life. It's just in general. And it's like, a lot of it's like, well, now what? And aside from that, it's also mixed with like, well, that's a huge responsibility. Will I handle it properly? And so, that's pretty much anything I'm feeling excited about. I'm also feeling mild anxiety about, but anyhow, I'm really excited about that. Like I'm looking forward to, that's something I've wanted for a long time and never been able to fully actualize. And so I'm kind of excited about that. I'm excited about having an EP. And then getting into the weeds with that. Like I have a friend who I just talked to today who like she runs like a very small record label in NorCal and knows like vinyl pressing plants and stuff. So I'm like, I might be able to make a vinyl. Like that's something I've always wanted to do. So
I'm excited about those things too, because I want a copy of both your comic and your EP. So
yeah, I mean, I'm just excited that those things are going to happen, and the thing that I'm excited about too is that they're not really surrounding money. Like they're all things I'm just doing because I'm like I love doing those things, and so I feel like the stuff that makes me really excited is the non-commercial stuff. Weirdly enough, I like having commercial wins and stuff, but I think the stuff I feel most fulfilled by is the stuff that I'm like. Able to get away with doing and that doesn't have like money attached necessarily. I am looking forward to I'm looking forward to doing cons again. Like I haven't done cons in a long time. I'm looking forward to the next book whenever that happens. And also just to like leveling up because I feel like there's this weird thing that's happened as I've gotten older. Things have actually gotten better and easier. Not necessarily easier, but just like challenges that I had with cartooning are now a little easier to overcome. So now I'm moving on to greater challenges, and I'm enjoying that. Like I'm kind of enjoying getting older. Like I'm not one of those people who's like, oh man, if I could go back to being 20 again or something. I actually kind of like the weird confidence that happens as you age. Like I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like insecurities and stuff that plagued me like 10 years ago. I don't even really have many of ones and stuff like that, but they're not like late 20s insecurities or like early 30s insecurities. So it's kind of interesting. I'm enjoying that process. So, but I think the main thing is I'm just looking. The hard part is, anytime I'm even thinking about the things I'm looking forward to, there's this time that always comes involved where I'm like, I'm looking forward to kind of making as much as I can without running out of time because I hate the idea that we have such limited time to make what we want to make.
That's kind of what I was going to say is like, I'm excited to have like the limited amount of time that I have on Earth, like leave behind like a body of work.
Yeah.
Like it'll be cool to be able to like, I don't know, for people to be like, hey, that guy's dead now, but like, look at this cool thing he made. I don't know why that's one of the things that I think about, but like that is kind of interesting to me. And then I also like the idea, like the anthology that we were in. I'm trying to think. I think that's the first time I've been in print where it wasn't self-published, like by me. And it was pretty cool because my daughter, like, she like grabbed a copy and she's like, "This is mine." I was like, "Well, you can read it." And she's like, "No, it's mine. I'm gonna go tell my friends. My dad's published, And so she's like running around like the neighborhood, like, "Hey, look, my dad's in a book." It's like, that's pretty rad, Like, I like that. There's like somebody that's like proud of me, excited. That's something to kind of look forward to, is like to be able to like make stuff that people like run around the neighborhood and like show other people.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. I haven't experienced that with Ben. It might be his age, but I think it's also just because like his mom's done like so many books. He's just like, oh yeah, it's his parents just do books. That's what.
Right.
Yeah. Like, it's like this. It's not normal. But I've heard that also as just like a common thread where like people who are like movie stars and stuff, like their kids eventually get to an age where they're like, "Dad's a dork. All he does is act in films as a Hollywood movie star. Like, he's not a bummer. He's not cool."
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. But I do think that is something you've touched on, a lot of things that I think are like really good kind of centering points where it's just like, dude, being able to impact people, being able to have something, to put something that's not there for people to kind of talk about.
Yeah.
The dialogue a little bit. I think that is cool.
I feel like when we do like happy episodes like this, that I'm not fired up about it. I these lulls because I'm just like, that is really cool. Rather than like, I'm mad about that too. Let me yell about it.
Well, it's an interesting exercise because I think that, and this might kind of tie into like the active creation and stuff, where it's like it's easier to it's way easier just innately for us to kind of rip things apart as human beings. It's harder to like build things and be positive. And so I think like I'm even writing like a more kind of tragic story with a little bit of humor and stuff, but it's more on the sad end. And I think that might actually be easier than writing something really lighthearted. Because it's like easier to kind of tap into that well. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, they've done studies that like anger is the fastest spreading emotion on social media.
Right.
And that's kind of sad, but it's like, it's also just, that makes sense. It's like very true.
Yeah.
That it's really easy to get like riled up about something, but there is something kind of vulnerable about like admitting that you're excited for something. Like I told one of my classes recently, I told him like, I'm going to tell you something that I'm going to tell you something that I am like uncomfortable saying out loud. And then, so they all perked up because I was trying to get them to understand. We did an exercise talking about like, what's the worst that can happen? Cause it's a capstone class and a lot of them are doing like a normal kind of early 20s thing, which is like planning paralysis rather than like jumping in and getting started on the work,
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's talk about what's actually stopping us. And so it was like, fear of what other people might think of you, the idea of something being better than the execution of something, and all of those type of things. And then I said, okay, so we wrote all those things down. It was an awesome list. And then I was like, all right, what's the worst case scenario if this happens? What if everyone in your group like hates your guts and thinks that you're really bad at this? Like the worst thing that happens is like 5 people think something, like you're not dead. You haven't been dismembered, like, or whatever. Like there's not any really lasting consequences. It's kind of embarrassing and demoralizing, but like that is literally as far as that goes, you know. And the likelihood of that is low because you're all in the same boat, you know. And so we started talking about that, and it was interesting because then they really started kind of opening up. And I told him, there's some fear in admitting that you want something good to happen, because if you say, and Brene Brown has written about this, if you say like, I'm excited about this thing in the future, and then that thing doesn't happen, like people know that you're disappointed, you know.
Yeah.
And also there's a bit of hubris in that, which is kind of this old Greek thing. And the Greeks are fascinating to me because they have this idea that like wanting good things to happen is like your intention doesn't matter at all, except if you have hope. And if you have hope, then that's a big problem because it's like an affront to the gods. And so when we as like modern day people look at the idea of Pandora's box, we think that hope is like, oh, but in the end, like she opened up the box and all of the bad things flew out. But then, you know, a few minutes later, the last thing to fly out was hope. And we look at that as like, oh, what an awesome kind of story. Like there's all this bad stuff that's going to happen, but at least you have hope. The way the Greeks actually looked at that story was that that's the worst possible thing that could have come out of that box was hope, because then hope can lead to hubris, and hubris leads to the gods turning to you and noticing that you're trying to make your life better and destroying you. And so, but the modern day interpretation of that, we still kind of have some of that aversion to saying like, I want this to happen.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to get over this, because if something doesn't happen and I have downplayed it, it's actually nice to have people that care about me come to me and say like, hey man, I'm sorry that didn't happen. Like, I know that was something you're looking forward to, you know? And then also like, I don't mitigate anything by doing that, because if I do get that thing, then no one cares either, because I told them that I didn't care if it happened. And so like I told this class, I said, I have applied to 57 film festivals with this thing. I know that this isn't going to happen, but I want to win an Oscar. Like I'm applying to film festivals that are going to get me IMDb credits, that are going to win BAFTAs, that are going to win, I mean, I don't qualify for BAFTA, but they're going to win Oscars and Emmys and things like that. I'm like, I am swinging for the fences on this thing. I know that the likelihood of me beating out Pixar and DreamWorks is like nothing. Like that's never going to happen, but it drives me, and I actually want that. And saying that out loud makes me so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, like I know that like people in this community and you guys and my friends that are like in person and my family and stuff, like if I do get shown at one of these festivals, and so far I've got nothing but rejections, but like if I do get like shown, like I'm talking about it so that people realize that I actually do care about it. Like I don't want to be like one of those guys that like tries to downplay stuff like, oh, it'd be cool, but I don't really care. You know, it's like, no, I care. Like I want to win. I want to get in there and I want to do this. And so like if that does happen, like I'm gonna be stoked. I'm gonna be that accountant, like fist pumping in the air, running down the thing because I won $20. Because I mean the prizes aren't big, they're not worth it. But you know, I'll tell you a secret. If you ever start a film festival and you want me to apply for your film festival, have a really cool looking trophy. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing that oftentimes like we're okay with accepting what's going on in the present. It's terrifying for me to admit that out loud to this audience. You know, that I hope for something, you know, like it's an interesting thing, like that we're not okay with admitting that we have hope and that we want something to happen.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's because there's risk inherent in it, right? Because we're all kind of, I think like primitively, like we all feel like a fear of like vulnerability. And I think that's what's great about like Brene Brown's like writing and stuff, is it touches so much on how much we are freaked out by vulnerability, and yet how much power is in it. when you actually embrace it and you're just like, yeah, I'm vulnerable, I'm weak, like I have these things, and people actually tend to be drawn to that more. But like, there's an inherent vulnerability to like admitting something you really want, because like, once again, if it doesn't happen, and I think it's more, I think you're right, it's more driven by like fear, because I don't think this would ever come to fruition. But the thought, you know, is like, well, then if I admit I like this thing, or if I admit, like, let's say you're going to play a game or something, and you're like, if I admit I want to win this game, then if I don't win, I'm a complete loser, right?
Right.
I think that's kind of the inherent fear behind that thing, because I share that too. You know, I definitely have aspirations of like where I'd like my book to be, and they're fairly realistic. There's a couple wild ones, you know, like long game kind of aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is frightening to be like, yeah, I want my book to come out. I want it to be successful. I want a ton of people to read it, you know.
Yeah.
I want it to get reviewed well and like be on like the top 10 literary lists and all that stuff. But one thing I've realized is, for me, and I'm glad you're kind of sharing that too, is that like, that's something I had really strong when I initially did my first comic and I went for the Zarek. I had this like almost, it was an unrealistic view of what I'd be able to achieve as an artist at the time and where I was at as an artist. I actually think it's valuable to remember that some of that's really good to have.
Right.
Like, you can't lose that as you've been at this for a while, because if you lose that, then you're going to get buried by the kid who still thinks they can get an Eisner.
Right.
And what's weird is that kid might actually get an Eisner just because of that delusion, because often it is a mild delusion. Like, we're all a little nuts to be doing art in the first place.
Right.
And so I do, I don't know, I admire the vulnerability in that, because it is hard to admit, like, I really want this thing, you know. But like you said, like, by opening up about that, then if you have a disappointment, you have a community to back you up.
Yeah.
If you have a success, you have a community to celebrate. And if you have a circle of friends that don't do those things when you've shared them, then like, you have made it very clear what friends not to have, right?
Oh, yeah.
A good friend's going to celebrate successes and kind of, you know, pick you up when you have a loss, you know. And
yeah.
So that, yeah. I don't know, Scott, does that ring home at all with anything?
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I have anything else to add. I mean,
cool. Well, we've been going at like an hour and 30 minutes. So
yeah.
I feel like we
really
Artcasters / check.
Yeah.
And we managed to kind of hit on some of the positive points and stuff of what we do, and talk about hope, which is a vulnerable and scary thing to talk about. But I think it's good to share your hopes and try to make them happen. I love that. That's actually great. And actually, that's a good point, is like, the love of what you do is going to be the thing that picks you up when you fail. Because like, inevitably you're going to fail. And the one thing that'll pick you up out of failure is like a real desire and love for the thing you're doing. Because like, then like, if you look at somebody who wants to be like an athlete, when they go hard, they go a little harder. They'll pick themselves up a little quicker because they love the game. It's kind of a similar thing. It's like, if you really love art, that's going to get you through those, like, you know, those times where like, you're excited, you got the client, and then the client bails, you know, and like, or you're excited, you get the opportunity to do this art thing, and then it just didn't come out the way you wanted it to, and you're like, crap, well, now I got to learn how to draw this thing, you know. So like, yeah. But yeah, I think Corey, I think you got a good shot at getting in one or two of those, and I think, like I said, if that doesn't happen, it's still way more worthy to do it than to not, because you know, you literally earn stripes by doing that. And also you're figuring out so much in the process of doing that's adding to your knowledge base. It's going to be cool. So
I think the animation itself is a critique of the system that the people are promulgating. So you'd have to have some really self-aware people to let it in. I think the topic that I chose in that animation is a large criticism of the entire industry of Hollywood. And so to ask Hollywood to reward that is pretty ballsy.
Yeah.
So I think the quality's there. I do like that animation, but it's as I think Scott described it as bleak, and I think that's a pretty accurate thing. Like it's not a pleasant watch, and afterwards you're kind of depressed.
Yeah. And I relate 100% with that conundrum, because that's the book I'm about to publish. I'm like, it's not necessarily going to give you a good feeling afterwards. So I don't know if there's much of a market for like the non-happy joy type stuff.
It's there a little bit. I think there's a more of a market for that than there are awards for it.
I would agree with that too.
Maybe that's just me mitigating the loss that is
the risk.
Right.
Well, I mean, here's the weird, and here's the thing that just kind of remain with hope and stuff too, is like you really you kind of can't play genie with that stuff. Like you really don't know. You're not a fortune teller. You don't know the future, and so like you're selling yourself short if you're saying it can't happen, because it could.
Right. And I mean, if I didn't think it could, I wouldn't have bothered to research and apply to 57 different festivals. It's just honestly speaking, I think it is less likely to happen than other things, just because of the subject. Because afterwards I was like, because I showed it to a few people and each one of them was like, wow, that's really dark. And I was like, yeah, because I'm not like a super dark, sad person, but it is a pretty depressing view on like the industry.
Yeah, but I think it's good for that. So hopefully they're smart enough to do it and back it.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'm excited if they do. That'd be awesome. You guys will hear about it for sure. I'll let everybody know.
Well, let us know regardless, because I think it's super valuable. All right, so is there anything we didn't kind of hit on with this or touch on, like any missing stuff for the topic? You guys feel like we did it?
I feel like we did it.
All right, we did it. So for all of those of you out there, like I hope you guys love what you're doing, and if you love what you're doing, it's not your living yet, like really encourage you guys to do it, because like no matter how hard it gets with, I think what we're all doing, we're all pretty in love with what we do, and so that kind of makes our job like very fulfilling. So that'll do it, and I guess we will just let everybody know where to find us. You're on my channel, you know where to find me. Hit the bell or the subscribe, and if you haven't yet, and then also you can read the comic I've been working on for like the last 4 years. Read that quarterlystories.com, and I'll be vulnerable and just say I want you guys to read it. Like it would actually mean a lot to me if people actually checked it out and read it, because it's a very personal work. So I want people to read it. Corey, where can people find you? And by the way, thanks for joining us on Artcasters.
Yeah, no problem. You can always find me at coreykerr.com, and That's a Squarespace site, and on there, if you can see 2 different types of illustration that I do, where I do the digital colors or I do like traditional inks. I've got both of those categorized. I don't have my animations up yet, but you can see a lot of like little snippets of some of the stuff that I'm working on from an animation standpoint on Twitter and Instagram, and then I do like process videos about those things on YouTube. And so if you go through like my Illo Talk playlist, you'll see a lot of the stuff with me talking about stuff while I show things. But that's the big hub is CoreyKerr.com, and then you can kind of see what's going on, and from there it can kind of branch out or whatever.
Yeah, and you guys definitely should see that. So Scott, it's kind of confusing. It seems like every other week this show is on a different channel, just bouncing around everywhere. We have different guests. It's just like, how do I keep track of this if I'm a fan?
Yeah, and today's on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday. That's of course because tomorrow's Halloween, but sometimes we change the day around, and it can get a little confusing, like Josh was saying. But if you don't want to be confused, the easiest way to know exactly what channel it's going to be on, what day it's going to be on, who the guest is, all that stuff. If you just join our mailing list, there should be a link in the description of this video. You click on that, you can join the mailing list, and usually about 30 minutes before we go live, I send out a little invite with a link to where you can check it out, and you'll know exactly what day and what time and all that stuff. So join that. And other than that, you can find me at CircWorks on YouTube and on at circworks.com. Yeah. Oh, and check out that video. Go to YouTube and check out that video I just did, because, like I said, it was a lot of fun. I think people would get a kick out of it. So far, the people who have commented really do like it, and I had a lot of fun with it. So it's just client horror stories on my YouTube channel. So
yeah, and I mean, you guys I want to hear Scott's like Vincent Price. Like that in itself should be a reason to check it out. Like,
yeah, it's not a total Vincent Price impersonation, but it's in the spirit of so.
Oh, before we wrap it up too, happy Halloween, everybody. Hope you guys have a rad one, and I guess that'll do it. So we will see you guys next week.
See ya.